Thank you guys very much for joining us. I have had the unique honor and privilege of getting to know and work with Jonathan Clemente in just understanding and working through and figuring out what peer support means, especially in coordinated specialty care for first episode psychosis. So we've been having some conversations together and figuring out what teams might want to know and have this kind of dialogue. So we came up with some things that we've heard over the years. We also are encouraging the rest of the community. If you think of something towards the end, we'll just open it up for questions. If you want to put in the chat anything, this is kind of your opportunity. Jonathan has graciously agreed to answer whatever he can answer, and we'll kind of go from there. So the first thing I know we wanted to just kind of chat through is, what would you say to a team that's considering adding a peer support specialist to their team? What concerns might they have? How could they overcome them?
Sure. So, I mean, having a peer support specialist is a unique opportunity. I think, as I tried to highlight in the didactic and just speaking to the basic points again, like there may come like certain challenges in sort of negotiating the different roles. Um, but just to highlight some of the benefits, initially, just that lived experience, just having that individual that can go to any participant and say, hey, I know what you're going through, and I'm there for you, and I'm here to help you, and we're here to help you, can open the door to a richer relationship with the participant and help them to feel like I know, like for me, when I first was introduced to treatment, just I didn't unfortunately come in on a coordinated specialty care team, but I just felt like almost um, like threatened a little bit by my treatment team, and in the sense that maybe there was a little bit of like a power imbalance, like where I was getting assigned a role and a diagnostic label, and I didn't totally know how to process that. And so I think a peer support specialist can kind of step in and be the mediator and kind of go between maybe a psychiatrist and the participant, or a family member and the participant, or a clinician and the participant, and really kind of like bridge and web out the interconnectedness and try to sort of be almost like a translator in a certain sense of like, hey, this is maybe what you're feeling, this is what you're going through, and it's okay. I identify with what you're going through, and then like, hey, this is what your therapist is working to like get across to you and trying to help you with, and what is your thought about that? And then the peer support specialist can go back to the therapist or clinician, psychiatrist, or family member or friend, whatever the situation is, and kind of help to bridge that communication gap and help relate that experience of what the participant is going through. And so, just in preparing for the Q&A, like it may be initially a little bit like as a therapist, I wondered like not me as a therapist, but as I came onto the team and interacted with therapists, I wondered if there was maybe a little bit of like vulnerability, like feeling like maybe like, are the peer support specialists trying to take our jobs, or are they going to be replacing me with a peer support specialist? And that's really the farthest thing from the truth. Like a peer support specialist is a non-clinical staff. We don't work in clinical language. We don't work with therapeutic approaches. And we need the therapist to work on those approaches and to have that relationship to advance the treatment goals of the individual. A team of peer support specialists alone isn't going to be able to be that coordinated specialty care approach, that integrated approach.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know you've talked a lot about that connection, and sometimes even where an individual, you're the only one they'll connect with on the team. And so you're building that relationship and then finding that comfort to help them then meet with the psychiatrist or the therapist. Or so that's, I think, another really cool piece as well for some of the teams. How do you handle it when someone says, I don't want my therapist to know this, it's between you and me?
Okay, so as a peer support specialist, we are certified by the state, and we are mandated reporters. So if there is an individual that's in jeopardy of being at risk to harm themselves or others, we are required to report that. I might, in my initial dialogue with the participant, as I'm introducing my role, I may disclose to them that we do relate information back to the treatment team and that we're working in collaboration with the treatment team. If there was something that I felt like, outside of the realm of harm to self or others, there's a possibility I might raise it with my supervisor first and say, hey, they asked me to guard this information, and then the supervisor may be able to say, hey, maybe ask this follow-up question, like, why do you not want the treatment team to know that? Or what is it about your concern that you don't want the treatment team to know about that? And so you can kind of negotiate those terms. But I would say, like, as I've worked on an FEP team for the last over 5 years now, I could say that in general, I try to veer on the direction of sharing the information, because I think that as the team needs that information to function, and they're counting on me just as much as I'm counting on them. Like in our team meetings and stuff like that, like I really rely on the input of the psychiatrists and other clinical staff and our director and clinical supervisor. And I feel like just as much they're counting on me to share the information that I have. And that's really like what makes the model work, I think, is when we're all like on the same page and we have uh, like access to the same information.
Right. I know one role of the peer support specialist is to bring that voice of lived experience to the team. So how do you do that? And have there been any successes or challenges that you've experienced?
So one of the benefits that I've had working, there was one, just to share a success story, kind of in alignment with your question. There was one individual that had a specific reaction to a medication, and it I'm not totally familiar with all like the medical terminology, but his body was locking up. We were going on a walk one day, and he's just said, I can't walk. My legs are locking up. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if that's like considered like muscle rigidity or EPS or whatever, but I had a similar side effect on one of the medications that I took, and so his own family thought that he was fabricating the side effect to sort of prevent his treatment. They thought that he was making it up so that he didn't have to take the medicine. And even some of our treatment team weren't really familiar with that. Our medical doctor was familiar with that, but at the time, some of our treatment team hadn't been familiar with that particular side effect. And so I was able to advocate not only for the family member to his family member, but also to and we had a release for the family member, but I was also able to advocate for to the treatment team itself too, and say, hey, he may not want to be on medicine, but he's not making up this side effect about the medicine. It is actually creating this side effect, and I know because I went through it myself, and then even to push it further, that my experience was helpful even further, because the individual was like, oh, well, I'm never taking antipsychotic medication ever again. And the doctor, of course, wanted to try other ones on him. And I was able to say, hey, like it took me almost like 5 different trials of different antipsychotic medication before I finally found the one that actually worked for me. And the medication combinations that have kept me stable and functioning at my best. And so when he heard that, he was kind of like, he was able to open his mind and think, well, maybe I don't want to go through, 3 or 4 different trials. Maybe I should try maybe another one, or maybe another one after that. And so like right now he's doing really well. He's been holding a job down for about the last year. He's been free from hospitalization the last year, and he's started to pursue his education at the local community college, and he wants to get into a professional degree. So it's really exciting.
That's very powerful. And one of the things I know we've talked about for that role of the peer support specialist is kind of amplifying individual voices. And so that your ability to be in those team meetings or working directly with different members of the team, I think really does help people make those connections of what it is like for people with that lived experience. So I think you've kind of hinted around at maybe some examples, but can you think of what is maybe the top couple of most rewarding parts of your job?
Oh, well, you, in the didactic, I shared just about the mutuality of it, and it's not just. I mean, the most rewarding part is meeting the participants and getting to um, share in just their unique and creative and amazing character. And I mean, I've met some just outstanding individuals that have just changed the way I view the world, and just sharing like moments with them and getting the benefit of seeing like their unique perspectives and their energy and their enthusiasm and what they're excited and passionate about. Like I'd say like those and seeing them get better, the ones and perform well in treatment and obtain goals and stuff and make advances in their recovery and being able to be like a solid support for them in that progress. That's definitely the highlight, I think. And with that being said, I mean, as I started off saying, the mutuality is great too. You know, like I mean, I feel like just for me, like learning, getting the benefit of working with the clinical staff and the psychiatrists and being able to like ask them questions or be able to participate in some of the informational like didactics that Neomed has put on and the echo stuff. And I mean, even today we're getting opportunity at 3 o'clock for the Fred Freeze lecture and just like hearing some of the speakers that audience has brought in over the years it's been inspirational to me and it's advanced like my recovery and my understanding of where I can go with my career and where I can go with my recovery to imagine new possibilities that I hadn't thought of before.
We appreciate that. I have that experience too. Watching people really achieve their successes is always kind of the most rewarding part of doing this work. How about describing challenges of whether it's been you or other peer support specialists that you're aware of, and how do y'all deal with those challenges?
I think the hardest challenge for me has been the drift, the tendency to want to drift. And Pat D, I kind of at first, I mean, you pick up on it quick, but Pat Deegan gave a great presentation on the idea of drift, and I think it's something that hit home with me that there are agencies that are strictly peer run, but on an FEP coordinated specialty care team, it's not going to be like that. And so most of the staff that I interact with are clinical, and so with that being said, I think there can be a pressure for me internally to try to assimilate to the role of a like a pseudo clinician or a junior clinician, and I start like adopting some of the same language and same almost like instinctual approaches that they would use in their treatment process. And I think that peer support specialist, being a peer support specialist, is radically different from the role of a clinician, as I've tried to outline in the didactic. And so so it's important for us to have like other outlets, like with other peer support specialists, where we can maybe like attend like the peer conference. Being able to attend that conference every year is important. Having other like friends, maintaining your own recovery and your own support group is really important. Like so that you don't lose that perspective of like I'm a junior clinician or and with that comes the alternative pressure of when you're with the participants. I think there can be a strong pressure to try to drift into some of the roles that identify that are not peer support specialists, like I think most importantly, I think friend. I think as I stated before, there is an aspect of friendliness that you're exhibiting, but it's not a friendship role. And I think that the participants sometimes maybe for whatever reasons, just maybe their own support group has, like I said, been narrowed from their lived experience, and it's important for you to try to help them rebuild those relationships in the community with authentic friendships with their own peer group. And so I have tried to do that we created a peer support group at Catholic Charities, and so I've tried to link them with each other. And some of them have exchanged numbers with each other and hang out outside of the group. And I think that's important for them to have those relationships. And I think that the work that we're doing in those groups helps them build friendships outside of outside of the work I'm doing. But I'm not their friend, like in a strict sense. And I think that there can be a tendency to want to drift into that just through assimilation, but that's not what I am either.
Yeah. And looking at our audience here, I'm going to give you this really unique opportunity, right? So we've got prescribers, we've got team leaders, we've got employment specialists, we've got therapists. Are there certain things that you want maybe people in those individual roles to know about peer support and how to add that to what they're doing with people?
Um, well, I mean, I think the first thing is that we're not here to take your job. We need you, and I think it's been so insightful to me just to learn to be able to the benefit to have that experience. I guess what I'm trying to say is that on a coordinated specialty care, it can be a little bit frustrating to have that tension sometimes in our roles. There's been just through the flux of different openings and closings within our agency and so forth, there can be like to say we might be down a case manager. There might be a pressure for me to start to like take on some of those responsibilities of a case manager, and occasionally I probably veered a little bit outside of my authentic role as a peer support specialist and drifted into the role of a case manager. And so there might be a little bit of like, we're in bumper cars and we're bumping each other a little bit from time to time. But I think that as we develop the rapport, not only with the participants, but also with each other and get a feel for like, okay, this is my lane and this is your lane. And I can actually like be like an assist player, like in the game of basketball, I'm throwing an assist here. And you're throwing an assist back to me. And, maybe the psychiatrist slams the dunk, and maybe the therapist slams the dunk on the next go around, or the 3-pointer, it's a team sport, and when we work best, we're functioning as a team and not an individual, like it's really, it's a, as they say in the recovery rooms, it's a we program. We work better as a team.
Absolutely. And in the spirit of team, you've offered to let anyone here ask questions, whether they want to take themselves off mute or if you want to put it in the chat. So I would love to open it up now to anyone out there. If you want to unmute or if you want to put something in the chat, here's your opportunity. You've got Jonathan ready and waiting to talk.
I wanted to say something. Hi, Jonathan. That was a great presentation. And I really got a lot of information out of it because I have this problem with peer supporters and the overstepping of the boundaries and all of that. So this was very informative to me so that I can know where they're coming from, kind of speak, and not thinking like you said they trying to be the case manager and all of that. It's just so funny though because um, this has been an issue for me on our first team, and I reached out to our leader, and I was like, out of all the echo things, I think this is the best one that I've got and really like into it and getting some good information. So this will help me to be keep mindful of how I treat our peer supporters.
Thank you. Glad I could help.
Excellent. Anyone there? So we have something in the chat. Did you have a peer support available to you when you initially engaged in treatment? What was your experience like?
So I did not have a formally trained peer support specialist certified by the state of Ohio to provide peer support for me. But over the course of my treatment, I've had, I think, many peer support specialists. They didn't know, they weren't getting, I guess they were, well, and this kind of gets into some of the history of what peer support is and how it developed. And I'm not well versed on that history, but I think that essentially part of where peer support came from was from just an informal mentorship that often happened with, I think it's the MAD movement is one where other people that had been maybe received mental health treatment started to shepherd and take in new generations or younger generations of other people that were also being treated by the mental health system, and they tried to look out for each other and try to pave a way to good results. And so I think that peer support is in essence like a form of fidelity, and maintaining a fidelity between the participant and the treatment team, and authenticating that fidelity for the best outcome. And so for me, like I can identify there was a guy when I was newly sober from drugs and alcohol. There was a guy that took me under his wing. He wasn't my sponsor in the 12-step program, but he kind of like mentored me in a way that I think was really like peer support. And I'm not still in communication with him today, but I do owe him a debt of gratitude just for his patience and his willingness to take, like I said, take me under his wing and kind of help me get started. He was about my own age or so, and peer support doesn't have to be age related necessarily, but I found that helpful that he was closer to my age bracket. But it's not a requirement for peer support. And then the other place that I experienced some peer support was that when I had my psychotic episode in 2017, I was hospitalized at Geauga Medical Center and then transferred to the Hopewell Therapeutic Farm, which is an amazing place. And one of the cool aspects of that treatment was that there were residents that had been through their own life experience of being treated for serious mental illness. And so I was able to go on walks with them and ask them questions, hey, like, what's your experience with these medicines, and what was your psychosis like? Or, how many times have you been hospitalized? Or what happens when you smoke marijuana, or cannabis, and I was able to like just pick their brains. And so that was one of the best things for me, like just being able to learn from their direct lived experience. And of course, like there was a psychiatrist on staff too, but sometimes the benefit that I got most was just having that peer that was like that knew that could speak the same language and really open up like what he had been through or she had been through and offer it to me.
Absolutely. And it speaks, we all are looking for our community. We're looking for our people, right? And sometimes it's harder to find that connection than others. And one of the values of having that peer support specialist is it at least gives participants on our teams an initial connection to someone who's been there. And then that, like you're saying, that also allows you to be kind of that bridge or connector and help them find the rest of their community. Neat. Any other questions? Either for the chat or come off mute.
I just have a comment, Deb, but I don't know if you're looking for comments right now.
That's okay.
Yeah. So Jonathan, I have to tell you that the experience that you have provided clinicians, at least to this clinician, has been absolutely invaluable. You have a very nice way of laying information out, sharing what it's like, and giving us an idea about how to implement that. And I just want to say I really appreciate what you bring to the team and what all peer supporters bring to the team. I think that every agency really ought to be thinking about adding that if it's not part of their current repertoire of services. So just really appreciating your willingness to share your experiences and your growth.
Thank you, Val.
So another excellent question in the chat. How do you handle resistance?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. So that it certainly comes up. What I usually would try to do is try to find either a shared interest or try to find an interest that motivates them. Like try to find out what they're passionate about and what makes them tick, and try to work off of that. And then also like what are their goals. I think it's important sometimes like as a community, like in the helping profession, we can really be big on like, this is what I think their goal ought to be, or this is what I think they need help with. But getting them to voice, hey, no, this is what I think I need help with, or this is where I want to go with my life. I think, I mean, I think there are some limits to autonomy, like in certain situations, but or self-determination rather, in some situations, like where if somebody had, but I mean, that's a different and deeper discussion. But I think, trying to identify, what makes them tick and what motivates them and what are they passionate about? And then what are their personal goals, and trying to coordinate, how can you complement them in that endeavor? How can you advance that endeavor for them? I think is usually what I would do to try to like, match, like to try to like the counter resistance. And the other thing is, it's important to be said too, is that peer support is entirely voluntary. And so if they don't want to work with you, they're not obligated to. And so, it's not that in every situation does that, like I might get a referral. Hey, can you reach out to so-and-so and try to work with them as a peer support specialist? And not every time do I get a return phone call, or sometimes it's just, it never ends up picking up. And sometimes the professional relationship might last, a few months and then dissipate. And then other times I've had participants that I've worked with for almost 5 years now that have, and so it's just different for everyone. And so helping, I guess, to identify their goals is important though.
And I would add to that, that's not exclusive to peer support, right? We hope everyone is really trying to work with an individual, find their goals and help them figure out the directions they want to go. And yeah, if they don't want to work with us, we help them find someone who they do want to work with. So excellent. One final call before we run out of time. Any other? This is your opportunity to. Now,
I just want to
Sure.
say, oh, I'm sorry. Jonathan, I just want to say thank you for what you do, and all peer support. I just think it's great to take the experience that you've lived and the things that you've been through in your life and turn it into something beautiful and help others. So I just think it's great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jonathan is a member of our ECHO community, so he's always available when we're talking about all of our situations and bringing that voice to our team here as well. So I thank you, Jonathan, publicly.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank you,
opportunity.
Jonathan.